Hi, this is Anil from Learning Led Education and welcome to another tutorial on Java programming language. So in this tutorial, we're gonna learn how we can pass an object to a method and also to a constructor, and then we're gonna learn how we can return an object from a method. So here for the demonstration purpose, I have this project, and then I have this oops package in my source folder, and then I have a couple of classes. I have this box class which is empty right now, and then I have this tutorials class. Alright, now here the first thing that we're gonna do is in my box class, let me have a couple of properties. So let's say it's gonna be width, and let's say they're gonna be of integer type, and then another one is gonna be height. Alright, now we're gonna have a constructor, so it's gonna be the same name as the class name, and this constructor is gonna take a couple of parameters. So int w and int h for width and height. If you guys want, you guys can name these local variables as width and height, and then you guys can use this keyword to differentiate between the instance variables and then the local variables. So here we're gonna initialize the value in our width, and then we're gonna initialize the height with the value we receive for the h. Alright, now I'm gonna save this class, and then in my tutorials class, in my main method, I'm gonna create an object from this box class. So we're gonna write box, and let me call it as b1 equal to new box. Alright, now we have this box b1. Now we need to pass a couple of parameters, let's say 10 and 20. Alright, now we have this box b1, and similarly let me create another box. So it's gonna be box b2 equal to new box, and then we're gonna pass a couple of parameters 20 and 30. Alright, now we have these couple of objects which we have created from this box class. Now I want to create a method, and by calling that method I can check whether this box 1 and box 2 are equal, whether they are containing the same value for the width and height, and I want to call that method from an object of this box class. So in my box class, I'm gonna define a method. So first, the return type of my method is gonna be a boolean value, because it's gonna return either true or false. And then I'm gonna call my method as is equal. It's gonna check whether one box is equal to another box. So as a parameter, this is equal method is gonna take an object. So here the object is gonna be of box class. So I'm gonna write box, and then we just need to give a name, and let me call it as b. Now here is equal method is gonna take only one object as a parameter, and then it's gonna compare that object's parameters or values with the calling object's parameters. So here what we're going to be doing is we're going to be calling b1 dot is equal, and then we're going to passing another object. So here we're going to be passing b2. So when we call this is equal method on this b1 object, at that time inside this is equal method we're going to use this keyword to get the width and height of this b1 object. So here we're gonna write if this dot width equal to b dot width, then we're gonna use and then this dot height equal to b dot height. If it is so, then we're gonna return true, else we're gonna return false. Alright, now we have this is equal method which is gonna take one object as a parameter, and then it's gonna return a boolean value. So now Here, while defining a method which is going to take an object as a parameter, the declaration is pretty much similar to the declaration of a method which is going to take primitive types as a parameter. So here, first we need to write the data type, and in this case it's going to be the class name, box, and then the variable name. Here, this B. Now, these objects are the reference types in Java, and that's why when you call a method and pass an object to a method, at that time the reference will be passed. So I have made a tutorial on this one. So if you guys don't know about this topic, then please check it out. And here, now what we're gonna do is, in my tutorials class, we're gonna store the return value of this statement inside if. So I'm gonna write if b1 equals b2. If it is so, then we're gonna say, using a println statement, that both b1 and b2 are equal. Alright, else we're gonna say, using a println statement, so I'm just gonna copy this one and I'm gonna paste it here, and we're gonna say are not equal. Alright, here when we say equal means they're gonna be having the same value for this width and height members. Alright, now I'm gonna run this program, and you guys can see both b1 and b2 are not equal. That's because this b1 is containing a value of 10 for the width, and b2 is containing 20, and b1 is containing 20 for height, and b2 is containing 30. If we initialize this b1 and b2 with the same values, and then if I run this program, then you guys can see both b1 and b2 are equal. Now in this case, we are calling this is equal method on b1 object, and that's why for this is equal method, this keyword will refer to the b1 object. So this dot width will refer to the b1 object's width property, and this dot height will refer to the height property or height member of the b1 object. And since they are containing the same value right now, it's gonna return a value of true. So here we have this method, which is an instance method. That's why, we can use this keyword and we can refer to the object from which we are calling this method. So here, we have passed an object to this is equal method. Now, as I told you before in the previous tutorials, a constructor is also a special method, and that's why we can pass an object to a constructor. So in my box class, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna define a constructor. So it's gonna be box, the same name as the class name, and then as a parameter, this constructor is gonna take one object, and that object is gonna be of box type. The object can be of any type, but here for the demonstration purpose, we're gonna take an object of the box type, the same class type, and then we're gonna name it as B. So here, while calling this constructor, what we're gonna be doing is, we're gonna be writing new, then the constructor name box, and we're gonna pass an object. For example, let's say B1. And then we're gonna be storing that reference returned in another reference variable. Let me call it as B3. And we're gonna be creating a new object, and we're gonna be initializing that new object with the value of this b1 objects, which is nothing but we're gonna be storing the width of this b1 object in the width member of the b3 object. We're gonna be storing the height of the b1 object in the height member or height property of the b3 object. So now what we can do is, we can use this keyword and we can refer to the object which is invoking this constructor. So here we're gonna write this dot, and we're gonna write width equal to b dot width. So the width property of this B object will be stored in the width property of the object which is invoking this constructor. So when we write B3 equal to new box B1, at that time the invoking object is going to be this B3 object. The reference of this one we are storing here in this B3. So the invoking object is going to be the B3 object, and here this will refer to this B3 object. This dot width equal to P dot width, and similarly this dot height equal to B dot height. Alright. Now when we call a constructor of this box class and when we pass an object of the same class, here we are passing this B1 object. At that time this B3 object is going to contain all the properties of this B1 object. It's going to contain the same value for the width and the height members, or the height properties. So now what we're going to do is, here we're going to create another method, and it's just going to print out the values of this width and height variables. So let me call this method with the return type void, and let me call it as display, and it's just not going to take any parameters, and we're just going to print out the values. So I'm going to use a println statement, and here I'm going to say width is, then we're going to append width, and then if you want, you guys can use this keyword, or if you write only width, then it will refer to the calling object's width property, and then you can refer, and height is, and then we're gonna write this dot height. Alright, now what we're gonna do is, in my tutorials class, we're gonna call the display method on the B1 and B3 object. So I'm gonna write B1 dot display, and then I'm gonna call B3 dot display, and now I'm gonna run this. You guys can see width is 10 and height is 20, which is for this B1 object, and width is 10 and height is 20 for the B3 object. And B1 and B2 are equal because we have created this B1 and B2 with the same values. If I change the values here, for example, let's say 30 and 40, and then if I run this, here you guys can see both B1 and B2 are not equal. Alright, now here we have learned how we can pass an object to a method, and also how we can pass an object to a constructor. Here we are passing only one object to this method, and also this method is an instance method, which is nothing but we are calling this method from an object, and that's why we are using this keyword to refer to the calling object, and we are accessing its properties, or its members. And now I'm going to teach you how you can write a static method to check whether two objects are equal or not. So now in my box class, I'm going to define another method, and this method is going to be the static method. So first we need to write the static keyword to indicate that this method is going to be the static method, and then we need to write the return type. Let's say it's going to return boolean value, and then we need to give a name for this method. So I'm going to say is two objects equal, and here, since this is a static method, this method is going to be called by using the class name. This method is not going to be an instance method, and that's why we're not going to be calling this method from an object. So we can't use this keyword. And here, to check for the equality between two objects, we need to pass two objects as a parameters. So here the first parameter is going to be B1, and the second parameter is going to be B2, and they're going to be the objects from the box class. So here inside this is two objects equals method, we're going to check for the values of the members of this B1 and B2 objects. Alright, now the first thing that we need to do is we need to check whether this b1 object's width and b2 object's width are containing the same values. So we're gonna use if, and we're gonna write b1 dot width is equal to b2 dot width, and similarly we're gonna do for the height. It's gonna be b1 dot height is it equal to b2 dot height. Alright, if it is so, we're gonna return true, else we're gonna return false. Alright, now we have this method is two objects equal, which is a static method, and it is taking two objects as a parameter, and it's gonna return whether that two objects are containing the same values for their members. Alright, now to call this is two objects equal method, we're gonna be using the class name. Since it is a static method, we need to call this method by using the class. So here in my tutorials class, I'm gonna copy this code, if and else, so that I don't need to type it again, and I'm gonna paste it here, and we're gonna remove this one. And now to call is two objects equal method, we're gonna write the class name first. So box dot is two objects equal, and we need to pass two objects as a parameter. So the first object that we're gonna pass is gonna be the b1 object, and then we're gonna pass the second object, which is gonna be the b2 object. So now I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna run this program, and now you guys can see both b1 and b2 are not equal, which is in this last line is from this static method. So here if I pass b3 here, and here I'm gonna say b3 here also, and if I run this program, you guys can see both b1 and b3 are equal. That's because this b3 object we have created, at that time we have passed this b1 object as a parameter, and in that constructor what we have done is we have assigned the same values of the b1 object's members to the b3 objects members, and that's why b1 and b3 objects members are containing the same values. Just remember here, we are not checking whether b1 and b2 objects are containing the reference to the same objects. And also if you write like b1 equal to b3 inside if statement, then it's not gonna check for the equality of the members values. It's just gonna check whether b1 and b3 are containing the reference to the same objects, or whether b1 and b3 are containing the same object's memory address. So we can't use this equal to comparison operator to check for the equality of two objects. So here the next thing that I want you guys to teach you in this tutorial is gonna be like how we can return an object from a method. So here what we're gonna do is we're gonna define a method in our box class. So after this is equal method, I'm gonna define the method, and this method is gonna return an object, and that's why first return type we need to specify the object which will be returned is from which class. Here the object we're gonna be returning is from the box class, and then we need to give the name for our method, and here we're gonna say duplicate, which is nothing but this method is gonna duplicate an object. This duplicate method is gonna create a clone of its own object. So here we don't need to pass an object as a parameter, because since it is an instance method, we can use this keyword to refer to the current object from which we are calling this duplicate method, and that's why we can duplicate the current object. So here first what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a temporary object which we're gonna be returning. So I'm gonna write box, and let me call this a temp equal to new, and then we're gonna call the constructor box, and then we're gonna write this. So when we write this will refer to the calling object, or the object which is calling this duplicate method. And we have created a constructor which is gonna take an object as a parameter, and that's why the calling object will be passed here as a parameter to this box constructor. And a new object will be created, and the new object's members are gonna contain the same values as the calling object's members. So here, while creating this B3 object, we have used the constructor and we have passed an object. And just like that, here also we are using the constructor which is taking an object as a parameter, but we are using this keyword here. And because of that, here in my tutorials class, if I call the duplicate method, for example on this B2 object, then it's gonna be B2 dot duplicate, and then we're gonna store the return value which is an object in another object. So here let me call this one as B4. Alright, now we are calling this duplicate method on this B2 object, and inside this duplicate method what we are doing is we are creating another object and passing this as a parameter to that one. At that time here this will refer to the calling object which is B2, and that's why this statement will be same as new box, and we are passing B2 as a parameter. At that time a new object will be created, and we are storing that reference in our temp variable. And similarly, if you want, you can call this constructor also. For that you need to write this dot width and this dot height. You guys can use any one. So here if you write only this, then we are calling this constructor which is taking an object as a parameter, and if you pass like this two parameters, the width and height, then you are calling this constructor. All right, the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna return temp. All right, now this duplicate method is gonna return an object. Now in my tutorials class I can call the display method on the B4 object. So here we can write B4 dot display, and also we're gonna call B2 dot display. So it's gonna be B2 dot display, and then I'm gonna run this program. You guys can see here this is from the B1 object, and which says width is 10 and height is 20, and then this is from the B3 object which says width is 10 and height is 20. For creating this B3 object we are passing this B1 object, and that's why B1 and B3 are containing the same values. And then this is from the B2 object, and it says width is 30 and height is 40. Here you guys can see we have created this B2 object and we have passed the values 30 and 40 for the width and height. And then we have used this duplicate method on this B2 object, and we have created this B4 object, and that's why this B2 and B4 objects are going to be containing the same values. So here width is 30 and height is 40 for the B4 object. So this is how you guys can pass an object as a parameter to a method, and also for a constructor, and also this is how you guys can return an object from a method. If you guys get any doubt in this tutorial, then don't hesitate to put a comment in my video. And also if you guys are not understanding this, then please watch it again so that you guys can understand this one. Alright, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you guys think that you guys have learned something from this tutorial, then please like this video and share it with your friends. And also you guys can like my Facebook page on facebook.com/learninglad, and tweet me on Twitter at learninglad.edu, and get the source code in my website learninglad.com, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.